Everybody, welcome back to Shoot and Show, covering the ins and outs of the footwear industry, covering everything from product to consumers and everything in between. Matt, there's this thing called AI. I don't know if you've heard about this thing.
Is that Steven Spielberg movie that
It
from like
is.
Haley Joel Osment or whatever his name was? I see
Yeah,
dead people and I see artificial intelligence.
exactly. That's exactly what it is. Thank you
I'm
very much.
tracking. All
Yes,
right, we're good.
totally nailed it. But part of what we need to understand is how AI is going to revolutionize kind of retail in particular. And I think from the conversations we have with a lot of folks in our industry, there's a lot of question marks, as in most industries. But the challenge really is like translating that into retail experience, retail data, um, having better operations, both in terms of direct to consumer or brick and mortar, and how this AI, and depending on how you define it and what you want to talk about, how we actually utilize that in our industry to better our industry, right? And so I think today is a little bit about trying to dust off. There's so many misunderstandings about this. There's so many people who are maybe using it, for their emails, writing emails or reports or whatever. But like retail is something we haven't really talked about much. So I'm excited about this conversation today.
I'm very excited because we have Paul Tepfenhart, who is the Global Director of Retail Industry Strategy and Solutions at Google.
Google.
Paul and I have a mutual friend who connected us on a whole different thing. And as I was talking to him, I was like, man, you have a really cool day job. Will you come and tell the footwear masses how to utilize AI in retail? So, Paul, welcome to Shoe and Show. Tell us exactly kind of what you do, and then we'll dive into the questions that we have.
Yeah, well, first, great to be here, Matt. Thanks for inviting me. And my day job is pretty cool, to be really honest. I get to work with some of the smartest people that are designing products, and I make sure that the stuff they're doing is going to be relevant and helpful to retailers. I mean, that's kind of the macro of it. I get to talk to some customers about how they're implementing, so I got lots of fun stories of real life. And I also get to know quite a few small companies that are leveraging AI to create unique solutions across the whole value chain. So it's certainly worth getting up for each day.
Well, let me ask you the first question, and Andy and I kind of will go back and forth. But as you think about implementation of AI, I feel like we're at the dawn of the technology, even though it's changing so quickly every single day. What are some of the biggest hurdles your clients and customers have with even just thinking about it and deploying the solutions that are necessary for success?
Yeah, I think the top three challenges really are data, and data. To be honest, I mean, if you look across retail, data's fragmented, data's dirty, it's in multiple systems. You have trouble interacting and interfacing to legacy systems. So, I could spend a whole hour talking about the data challenges. Every AI project turns into a data project. That's kind of how the world rolls. Once we move past the data topic, I think it's really important to get into the org topic. You've got some new skills that have to be developed, and oh, by the way, there's a little bit of fear, right? As a person working for a retailer, now all of a sudden I have to learn a whole bunch of new stuff. And what's that going to mean to me? And am I going to embrace it and lead it, or am I going to kind of passive aggressive? So I think the second big bucket of challenge is what goes on from a talent and a development standpoint organizationally. And then really, really important, because you've got to get through the CFO to get funding. What's the return on investment? How do we calculate it? How do we measure it? And how do we think about what we're doing in a way that leads to that? Because you want that positive flywheel, right? You want to try something, show value, rinse and repeat. And so I think being able to demonstrate the ROI, you have to be pretty intentional in setting up your projects, your pilots.
Before I ask my question, I do want to point out something that Paul didn't mention, but he has worked in retail before. He was at Walmart, I believe, for a number of years.
Yeah.
So he does have a very interesting worldview, because he's been in the spot of where he's advising people on this now.
Well, Andy, we can even go further. I started with Procter and Gamble, so I was on the consumer products side of the fence, running brands like Pringles and Folgers and Sunny Delight, and then I moved over to the retail side with Walmart, and certainly they're a pretty powerful retailer. Spent some time with HEB and built digital capabilities from scratch, and to a multi-billion-dollar digital business. And so I've lived it on both sides of the fence. I know it doesn't look like it, but I've got a 30-year retail career that predates my 5+ at Google.
Well, you have me at Sunny D.
Yeah,
One.
me with Sunny D too.
Isn't it good stuff? Well, let's combine Sunny D and Pringles and let's go have a party, right?
Well, I'm a little worried. I don't know how Zipic's going to like play out with some of these guys, but maybe AI will help figure out like how to keep that going. But I will say a lot of people are when they talk about AI, they're framing it as their strategy. Well, we've got AI, we're using AI, and so one thing that you've mentioned that we picked up on was that AI is not a strategy; it's a way to deliver the strategy. Can you unpackage that? Can you help people stop saying we're using AI and that's the strategy?
Yeah, no. Oftentimes I'll go into C-suite meetings and one of our big planks is AI this year. I said, that's great. What are you going to do? At the end of the day, an AI strategy really is about what problems do we have to solve, and then how are we going to use AI to accomplish that. AI is the method, not the strategy. We want to transform our business and become much more customer centric, or we want to become much more efficient in logistics. Those are strategic planks. AI can help, and many others. But let's not call it a strategy. Let's call it a incredibly important platform capability that's a means to an end.
So let's nerd out a little bit more. We've had our Pringles, we've downed our Sunny D. Let's talk about multimodal and assistive AI and how they're transforming consumer product experiences from both search and styling perspective. Maybe you want to kind of inform our listeners what that even means, but talk to us about
what did you just say, Matt?
I know, I'm waiting for you to tell me. I don't even know.
He stuck down the Sunny D and he just went off on a tangent.
Wow, too much sugar.
High.
So let's start with multimodal, because I think that's pretty fundamental. The idea that I can type something in and get an answer. Okay, that's been where we've been. Now we're moving to I can write it in sentences. I can describe things. This is where large language models have come in, and it becomes conversational. But then let's get into multimodality, which means, I might want to upload an image of something and then start having the conversation. We can give you some examples of that. Or I might want to shoot a video and then start asking some questions. So now you're having all these different modes of being able to input and have a conversational interaction to get to what you're looking for. I think about it in terms of things like, one of the experiences in footwear would be fabulous. Hey, here's my outfit. I'd like to pick up some new shoes that would really complement this thing and show it off. Okay, I'm going to upload a picture of the outfit I'm wearing, and I may have some other accessories I want to include in that. And now it's coming back with relevant suggestions that are tailored to your look that you're trying to achieve. And it may even go beyond that, because ultimately we want to have personalized, different for Matt, different for Andy. And so that's where this whole multimodal concept comes from, and really, really important.
Can Gemini, and I know the answer to this, but for the broader audience, Gemini can has a history and a knowledge of who you are. So it's not just one-offs. Like traditional Google is like, hey, you search for something, and then the search bar doesn't keep track. I mean, it keeps track, but it's not like it creates a profile that engages with you in these large language models. So Gemini keeps that history, and so it knows that Andy loves Adidas Boosts, that he has bought a number of those. He's asked about those a number of times, and it knows that it can, in a conversational way, come back to Andy and say, you know what? The new Boost drop. Would you like me to order you a pair in size 12, which I know you are, and deliver it to your house in Northern Virginia? Is that kind of where we're headed? And then how do brands interact with that? How do they get into that action, if you will, partnering with Google?
Yeah, let me try to clarify some of the pieces of what you said, because the experience is spot on. What we're talking about is a retailer can set up what we would call a customer data platform, and you're gathering all this data. What are the customers' interests? What are they buying? What are they doing? And that is part of what Gemini can consume in its ability to answer your questions. So Gemini unto itself is not keeping track of you. I want to dispel some of the freak out that might happen as we start talking about this. What we really want to emphasize is that for retailers, as you build your digital ecosystem, you're in a great spot to be able to personalize, to be able to build a customer database, and then be able to use Gemini that can process it and really tailor the experiences uniquely for each of us. And that's I think what we're trying to get to here, because yeah, what I'm going to want for my footwear might be quite different from what Matt's going to wear.
Yeah. I do think there is this thing where people are a little freaked out about them providing this information and somebody keeping a profile on them. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like they're living in this thing called Facebook that they already post anyway, or they walk around and talk on their phone as loud as possible so I can hear their
Yeah,
conversation. But then they get freaked out about this. Like, come on.
yeah.
Anyway, I do think
Well, but
alternatively what we
privacy,
have.
Andy, privacy is important, and you want to be super transparent about what you're collecting, and
Right.
that you're giving the consumer the privilege to do it, and so they can opt in or not opt in. But when they opt in, you're articulating what's the benefit of doing that.
Right.
You're going to get a tailored answer.
I would
Um,
say more than that, what we should be talking about is the ability for AI to help prevent fraud. Like,
ah,
there's so much happening now with, we hear all these stories where AI is being used to mimic voices or access these things. And then, like, we don't ask the second question is like, well, how could AI actually prevent that as well? And it would seem
yeah,
to me that if you have a profile of someone, and I've seen banks do this, where they create a profile, and if someone logs in at 3 a.m. to access something, it's probably not them, right? Based
yeah,
on
yeah.
login.
Or
So,
they sure broke pattern, right? And you want
right,
to check into that. No, I think one of the most fabulous things is the emergence of AI to support security, to support safety, to support data trust. Those areas are really, really effective for AI. Now, of course, the good guys using AI have to be a lot better than the bad guys using AI, right? And but that's really one of the important areas that Google has a lot of solutions to help with, because in retail, you got one arm tied behind your back if you're fighting against AI in your fraud area, or in your commercial security area of the physical space.
yeah,
There's a lot of pattern recognition of behavior of the shoppers that can be picked up on, and alert staff as well. So
yeah.
security safeguards really, really important.
One question I did have was, I always talk to people about the digital age, right? Like,
Mhm.
we go through these analog age maybe, and then we hit internet and the digital age. I actually still don't think people are very good in the digital age, and now we're already in the artificial age. So my question to you is around this kind of data. Um, and you mentioned at the very start, data is probably the most fundamental thing to AI to make sure that retailers get it right. Do you see retailers having the right data architecture and the right kind of way to use it so that when people start to search through images that they can actually search their catalogs and find the stuff that they're looking for? Or are we not quite there yet? Is that something that you kind of help retailers look at to kind of understand what's next?
Well, it's certainly one of the big challenges that retailers face. And if you're out there and you're thinking, "Oh, my data is not very good," you're not alone. That's a very, very common problem, but it's also a problem that you can get behind you rather quickly, because of AI. You're able to do some data cleaning. You're able to augment your data in ways and at a speed that you couldn't do before. So if you're behind on this one, great and important to get started, because it is foundational step one. But don't despair, because you can close the gap in a lot more quickly, because of some of the capabilities that AI can bring to you. So I'd say yes on both ends, Andy. We've got retail on a pretty good bell spectrum right now, where their data lies, but there's a lot of of unclean and challenging data issues out there. And that also gets you back to governance. Everything from, what are the clear standards of what we want to be collecting? What are our data policies? And how can we implement the proper controls? And this is something that having a good data partner can help you quickly get some proper governance in place. That is hand in glove with going down a data strategy to go fix the cleanliness problem.
Yeah, no one likes dirty data. I mean, it's just not a good place to be. Let's talk about scale and innovation. I don't know why that's funny, but it's funny. Let's talk about you said AI is not a strategy, right? It's just like
Yeah.
the strategy is a bigger kind of purpose that AI can help solve. How do you counsel retailers in particular about moving from experimentation to really kind of broad scale, impactful deployment of AI within their various systems?
Yeah, I almost call that the innovation cycle or the innovation flywheel. How do you get started? And the first thing is you take a look at your strategy and what do you want to be known for as a retailer? Because whatever you're doing with AI should be accelerating that. It shouldn't be a separate thing, right? And so let's go after the important use cases that create the most value for you. It could be in your marketing area, it could be in your operations area, it could be in your logistics area, many of these areas, and let's go after being able to quantify and set up a pilot behind those use cases. Let's then make sure we've got all the compulsory data to do that well. AI is not a magic wand. It's got to be fed with data. So you may have to go gather some additional data stories and then start testing and learning. Fast iteration. The AI is learning, you're learning, and together you can get to a point where you've got this thing up and running and you're starting to measure it and you're seeing the value immediately and you're seeing the ramp to high return. And then you just start rinse and repeat that innovation cycle, because then you pick more use cases, collect some more data, and before you know it, you've wound up going through your data transformation in support of the value creating use cases. That's the important mentality.
Now, does your suite of services, like the entire Google metaverse, if you will, I shouldn't say that, the Google verse, I guess I should say,
We'll say ecosystem here today.
ecosystem, whatever phrase we want to use, how are each of the solutions you guys provide, and I'm sure you're developing other ones that have yet to be, debuted, but
Sure.
how are you thinking about allowing or how empowering, I guess, just to say, retailers kind of adopt this across company? Because for me, as a layperson, I'm having this layperson conversation with an expert, Paul, for me, it's like the use cases, what do those look like? And then if I'm a retailer sitting back, it's like, okay, I know that, my employees can use it for maybe content creation and they can use it for like skill, different kind of tamp down on kind of low level skills and data entry and some other things.
Maybe I just want to ask it, how do I stock this shelf, right? I mean,
Right.
all that amazing repository of information that never gets to the people who need it.
Right.
It can be at their fingertips. That's a beautiful thing. But back to what you were asking me, I think what's the Google ecosystem and how do we help support, and is it there to support at each step? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we start with data, right? And so this is where we get into a unified data platform. We have a product called BigQuery. This does a phenomenal job. It's scalable. It's serverless data warehouse, and that is very accessible and useful and real-time oriented. You then go with Vertex, who's an AI platform, and we talked about use cases. You don't need a different tool every time you're doing a different use case. You just simply have Vertex and you're defining what you're trying to do. So you've got a data platform, you've got an AI platform, and those two things together enable you to accomplish most of the tasks. On top of that, we have an agent builder capability, so you can actually create AI agents that have bespoke purposes. Maybe you have some associates that are in the store and you want to offer them a little app, and that app is going to answer any question they have about what's the right way to do something in our store based on the procedures. Remember, we all went to training and we forgot it by the time we got to the store. So now I've got that little reminder at my fingertips. You could have the same thing for HR benefits. You can have it for the financial group to be able to to look at the quarterly results. You can make these agents for anything, but that's the stack, and that's what Google helps provide, as well as professional services to get some things implemented if you have some unique challenges along the way. A lot of times connecting to your existing legacy systems is one of the places where you need to get some help. Google has nice connectors. If you're running on SAP or something, we can pull that data right in for you, and because the speed of value is everything, right?
Mm.
I mean, we work in retail. I spent a lot of time in grocery and mass, and a couple of percent at the end of the day is what you take home. And so you need to be very efficient in what you're choosing, and you need to get value quickly. And that's what this does.
Let me ask you about getting foot traffic in the door and engaged, right? So we talked some about the operational side. I'm interested to hear your perspective on how AI can help shape experience at retail and how the consumer kind of
Yeah.
engages with the retailer.
Well, I think first off, hyper personalization is the first answer to what you're asking about. We all get flooded with information. I mean, my email, hundreds of emails, right? You're going to give it this much. You barely read beyond the title. So whatever hits you has to be super relevant to even get enough attention to matter. If you're going to drive foot traffic to the store, then I've got to get a message out there, and I've got to be talking about something you care about. So hyper personalization. We've talked for years about personalization. That's baloney. We were doing segmentation, groups and clusters and all that kind of stuff. In the age of AI, we're really talking about personalization. Matt, very different than Andy, different than Paul. And then you move into things like, well, okay, how do we make the store operation much more autonomous, much more efficient? Take the tasks that are redundant, mundane, take that off the associates. Give the associates tools so that they can better interact with customers. Because at the end of the day, why do you have people? What can they uniquely do is what you want them doing, selling, interacting with customers, et cetera, not doing those mundane. So get after autonomous store operations. You can also do it upstream for all the merchant community. How do we go after AI powered product innovation and being able to figure out what's the next trend that's happening, and be able to be sourcing products to fly right into that trend. At the end of the day, it's creating a seamless digital and physical experience. We used to call it phygital. We've kind of moved past that, but it's one experience that's being powered by the thing we all have in our hand.
Digital, I like that. Let's get digital, folks. I think what I like, what you're merging the two, right? The human aspect and the technological aspect. And I'll
Yeah.
use an analogy that I had in my life was when and people have heard this reference before, but a lot of what I learned in business was I learned at Chick-fil-A, fast food. And there was one day I was sitting there and I was wiping down a tray, and there was a line of people waiting to get checked out. And my boss comes over and says, "You need to stop wiping down the tray and get in front of the customer. Like, we're here to serve customers, right? Like,
That's
the
what we
tray's dirty. You're right. The tray's dirty. It needs to be clean, but that's not the priority right now. And the same in the store is the priority is human to human interaction creates that experience, right?
Well, that's what you can uniquely do, Andy. And so AI takes the stuff that's not that off of your plate and puts you in the theater. And Chick-fil-A does a great job of this, just culturally. So I think it's a good model to think about how AI could impact things. Let's leave the mundane for the automation.
Oh, I love that. My pleasure. My pleasure, Paul. Looking ahead to 2025 and beyond, I should say, beyond 2025, where is this all leading us from a retail and retail engagement with AI? Kind of what's the future hold? What do you, a year from now, if we're talking, what do you think will have happened over the last year?
Oh gosh, dramatic progress is happening in retail. We're seeing the tools advance at an unparalleled pace. I think 2024 was the age of experimentation. 2025 dawned, and we took those pilots and we're starting to scale. And I can tell you, the bigger retailers are rapidly scaling and deploying these capabilities into the hands. Things like a customer shopping agent, things like an associate agent, so that they're in a much better position to serve their customers. Things like automation, like task management and those kinds of things for the store associates. optimizing supply chains. We can go in all those vectors, but you're seeing AI permeate into each part of our lives. Half the time, we don't even know that's what it is. We don't really even see it as, oh, look, that's AI doing that, because it's just happening. We're going to wake up a year from now and 75, 80% of what we're interacting with will be powered by AI. And you can, I mean, we won't do this interview because I'll send my avatar, right?
I'm actually an avatar right now, Paul. It's already happening.
There you
That's why
go. There you
why the
go.
questions are so good.
Yeah, they
I
are
would think
excellent.
we are all three irreplaceable. I mean, that's just how I feel about it. But
My humor could probably be toned down with an AI agent a little bit.
oh my
What
goodness.
something kind of personal and fun. You've run retail innovation labs. You've had, you're working at Google on the AI and technology issues. If you could design some kind of future AI powered concept store, retail store, what would it be? What would you dream up?
Huh. Well, off the cuff, that's quite an enormous question. But we need some kind of pun that goes with footwear.
Oh, there's
So
plenty of them.
yeah, no, yeah, and probably something I could say on the podcast that we also want to have as a boundary. I don't know. What about the adaptive footprint? And the concept would have something to do with let's employ computer vision and make it very experiential. And so when you're in the theater of trying on various footwear, the environment actually reflects it. If I'm getting hiking shoes, you're gonna want to experience that, in the great out of doors. Well, let's face it, we're not going to take you out back and put you, but we can virtually do that. We can give you the sights, the sounds, and everything, and you're like, wow, this is going to be perfect. This feels comfortable. I can hike around a little bit, and I'm actually in the Rocky Mountains while I'm doing this. I think that's a really interesting way to go. Dynamic, interactive displays, and then conversations. I know, I don't want to. I'm much more into the beach, and I want some other kind of footwear for flopping around in the water, and so it's just very dynamic and immersive would be another fun word where I think things are going to go. I will tell you that I know of a lot of retailers that are working on these kinds of theater approaches,
That's cool.
and everything from apparel all the way through to foods and wine.
Andy, to kind of pick up on Paul's comment, I think it would be really cool if you took like a Johnson and Murphy who's made a pair of shoes for every president since Abraham Lincoln, and then you go on Paul's immersive experience and you could be wearing the shoes that the historical figure was wearing at an address, inaugural dress,
Yeah.
or some kind of historic events. You could literally take a walk in their shoes.
That's
and then
pretty
you
cool.
can hit buy. I like to buy these spare, you can go and buy them. That'd be a cool kind of marrying of all of the things.
Well, Abraham Lincoln checked me out. That's my question. I want to be checked out by Abe.
4 score and $125 later.
Now, honest Abe, is this the best deal you got? Now be honest.
I wouldn't tell a lie. Old George, he didn't cut down the cherry tree.
I like it. Well, but as much humor as there is, that's what you can do, right? The ability to generate. We could call it an avatar. We can call it whatever. But that agent has a virtual physical entity to interact with, which is so cool.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
Well, Paul, we really appreciate you taking the time today to talk to us about AI in terms of like operational, but also the experience, both from the consumer side and kind of the brand and retail side. And appreciate your the work that you're doing to kind of help build the future and from the consumer side. I mean, I think when in a year from now, when all these things start coming out, hopefully people can look back at this episode and say, "Oh, this was already foretold."
Prophetic.
Right?
It was prophetic.
Yeah. There you go. We'll call it the retail profit from now on.
Well, there you go. Absolutely. Well, folks, thank you for listening to this latest episode of Shoe and Show. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have today. As always, shoeandshow.com is the website. Full catalog is on there. We hope you go back and take a listen. And again, we're on all different audio platforms, no matter where you download your music from. We're there. And again, YouTube. We're back on YouTube big time in a big way. And I think our producer has it set up using some AI as well to help pull clips and put in notes from this episode.
That's right. It's not for somebody else. It's for everybody.
So we're actually using it for the podcast as well. So we got the human effect with all the jokes, and then we got the AI to make sure it actually goes out to the right people and gets out there to those folks. So
awesome.
Yeah. Well, Paul, thanks for spending the time with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Folks, again, thanks for listening. Until next time, Shoe-In
has been
out.
brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.